So the topic I wanted to explore today was some of the conflicting views that academics and universities may have about charitable funding for research. So there's no doubt that charitable funding and philanthropic giving make a fantastic contribution to science as we know it today. And we will explore in another post what actually motivates people to give. But it may surprise some people to realise that actually not all universities, not all academics are delighted about the role of charitable funding for research. So this post is not about giving a viewpoint one way or the other. It's just to say that there is an emerging body of research that looks at topics exactly like this. So why do some not believe it's a good idea? Well, there are three main reasons that I'm going to share with you today. The first is that they see that charitable giving for research is agenda-driven. So charities have a particular role in society and they have a particular outcome that they might want. For example, a cure for cancer, whereas researchers may want to explore different topics, realizing that perhaps a cure is not what they should be looking at, but perhaps living well with cancer, for example. So as an agenda-driven and quite closely related to that is point number two, is that academics often believe that there is a level of control exercised by charities. If they're funding research, they expect to get certain results, they expect to get a particular outcome or a report that's written in a certain way, and so it's very much like research to order. And so some academics believe that they lose their level of academic freedom and they lose their control as a result. Perhaps the most interesting point is that they believe that the research is not coordinated. So because you've got multiple charities actually donating and funding perhaps disparate types of research, that there isn't a cohesive body of research that incrementally builds on other findings, and so this is a particular criticism. So what could be some of the benefits of charitable research and charitable funding for research? Well, here are three of the benefits that researchers who are looking at these kinds of things and the role of society in research actually believe. One is that government funding will never be enough, and that is fair to say. And in fact, in most of the developed countries around the world, you'll see that academics and researchers often complain that there is not enough money in the system and that the funding ratios, the success ratios are so low that it's almost like a lottery to actually win funding. So from that point of view, some are extremely grateful for charitable funding for research. The second point is that given that the funds that are given by these charities often comes from regular people like you and me, what it shows is that the topics that people are prepared to give their hard-earned cash for, in terms of cancer research or any other type of charitable funding for research, is it shows what's of interest to people. Often now in most funding applications there is a section where researchers have to write about the benefits to society, and they have to be able to demonstrate what some of these impacts would actually be or what the pathway to implementation would be. And there is something about engaging with end users. Now, what charitable research funding shows us is that we know what the topics are of interest to people. So that's a very good thing. The third benefit that researchers say comes from charitable giving is that charities are often prepared, number three, to engage in high risk or research that is close to a result. Now, that is perhaps a really interesting benefit. Often it's said that there's a whole bottleneck of drugs or solutions or treatments that are available that need to actually be brought to market, but whether they will be successful or not, and when peer reviewers are actually looking at those proposals for researchers, if they're government funded and they're very conscious about taxpayer money, they'll be less inclined to approve that research, whereas if it's a charity funder, they may very well be inclined to actually fund that type of research. It is high risk, but they're keen on getting the result, and therefore they're prepared to put their money in. So the moral of this story is, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Charitable research funding does have a role in society, and while the jury may be out as to the benefits or the detractions from it, it's certainly something that cannot be ignored.